Hello and welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, the podcast where we talk about what's good in the glass and also meet the fascinating people behind the label of some of your favorite wines. On the podcast today, we're focused on a winery where white wine is the star. In a wine region famous for big reds, Acquiesce Winery took a bold stance with a winery devoted entirely to white wines. Vintner Susan Tipton was inspired by the whites of the legendary Rhone Valley in France and thought that the climate and soil of Lodi could produce similar results. She planted Viognier, Grenache Blanc, Crozan, Picpoul, and the whole aromatic orchestra. There's no Cab, no Zin, no Pinot Noir fighting for attention in Sue's cellars, just crisp, expressive whites taking center stage. What started as a passion project for Sue and her husband has blossomed into a name that wine lovers recognized far beyond Lodi. Today, we'll talk with Sue about living her dream and how sometimes the best way to stand out in wine is to zig when everyone else zags. We are the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm Mary Babbitt.
I'm Mary Orland. She's been called the Queen of White Wines. Sue Tipton isn't just a trailblazer, she's a risk taker. Sue's also premonition. Little did she know 15 years ago that white wines would overtake red wines as what people want to drink now. But Sue also shows us it's never too late in life to follow new dreams, becoming a winemaker in her 50s. Together with her husband Rodney, they've acquiesced to wine and wine country living, becoming part of the community. The Tiptons founded the Lodi Appellation Inclusion Collective to provide a place for people of color in the wine industry, and they're leading the way in regenerative grape farming in Lodi. We'll get into all of that with Sue. We're delighted she's with us to give us her take on white wine and her journey. Sue, welcome to Sip Sip Hooray.
Well, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here. I just love your podcast, and I've enjoyed many different versions of the wine industry, thanks to you.
Oh, we're so
you.
glad to hear that.
Wow.
Thank you. Well, now it's your turn to be on the hot seat, Sue, and we really appreciate you taking the risk with us. I think it might be fun to start with for our listeners who may not be familiar with Lodi. Let's help people kind of get to know Lodi and where you are at Acquiesce.
Well, Lodi is the largest wine growing region in the U.S., and it's relatively unknown by lots of wine drinkers. We're located about 35 minutes south of Sacramento, about an hour and a half from the Napa Valley. Lodi for years and years has been the home of farmers that have been growing grapes for the big wineries. And where we're located is in a campo, which sits about 15 minutes outside of downtown Lodi. So we're out in the country. And we have an 18-acre parcel where we have our home and our 120-year-old barn that we've converted to a tasting room, along with our winery. And so everything we have here is on site. So we have 18 acres, but when you look out of our window, you can see the sunrise in the morning. You can see the sunset in the evening. There's about 100 acres around us that are all grapes. So you have great views of the vineyards from our back patio.
Wow, it sounds beautiful.
Absolutely.
You had that sunrise and sunset visual was really lovely for me. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and in 2023, Acquiesce was named the Winery of the Year by Visit Lodi, and you all offer a really nice experience, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I wanted to ask you how you ended up in Lodi.
You know, who asks us all the time is people that have lived in Lodi their whole life.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so how we ended up in Lodi, Rodney and I are both originally from Chicago. And we moved to California in 2000. So even though we've been here now 26 years, we're considered newbies in the Lodi area since
Wow.
there's, many sixth and seventh generation farming families in Lodi.
Right.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up here. My husband was transferred to California, but we had kind of a journey. So from Chicago, we moved to Michigan, then to Sweden, then to Colorado, then to Oregon, and then to Texas, and
My
then to
goodness. Wow.
California.
Wow.
And he was in the corporate world and was promoted quite a bit. And I was a corporate wife, raising three boys. And so I had quite a diverse background. But we found that Lodi ticked all the boxes for us. I've got a great little story about why Acquiesce and why Lodi.
Oh,
Yes, I
please.
Um,
wanted
I
to
was
ask you, of
curious about
course.
Acquiesce, the name. It's unusual, but I like
oh,
it.
uh, yeah. So Rodney was traveling a lot internationally. And when we were living in Portland, Oregon, he had just traveled to 8 different countries in a 10-day time frame.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
he did a lot of meetings in different cities, and we were sitting on the patio. He was relaxing. We had a glass of wine in our hands, of course, and we were listening to Katie Lang, who's a Canadian
Mm-hmm.
singer,
Oh, I
on the
love her.
stereo.
Of
Uh-huh.
course, yes.
And she has a song called Acquiesce. And in the song, she's talking about releasing to, I don't know if it's a higher power or another person, but surrendering to a higher
Mm-hmm.
power. And Rodney turned to me and said, one day we're going to have a place and we're going to call it Acquiesce. And I said, well, what's it going to be like? And he said, I don't know for sure, but we're going to see the sunrise and the sunset. We're going to have property there and we're really going to enjoy it there. And I said, So when we made the move to Lodi, and there was a 12-acre vineyard on the property at the time, we called the vineyard Acquiesce Vineyard. And thus that began Acquiesce Winery a few years later.
Wow. Okay. So
So,
as you look back, what have you surrendered to?
So we say that we are surrendering to the grapes. So we're trying to make our wine in the style that represents what the grapes are giving us. We're not trying to manipulate the wine at all.
Mm,
So we're surrendering
love
to
it.
the grapes. Yeah.
that's great. Well, we will provide a link to the Katie Lang song in our show notes so
Oh,
everybody can hear that.
great.
But so that's fantastic. And so when you arrived, there was a 12-acre vineyard. It was all Zinfandel, I believe.
Right. Yes.
So you
So,
tore that out and did what?
well, I did not have a winemaking background. I was in my 50s at the time. So just to give you a little history on that, I started making wine with the Zinfandel on the property, just a home winemaker type wine, doing lots of research and a lot of self-taught. And actually, even though had no, feelings about going professional at the time, I did hire a friend, a winemaker, Heather Pyle Lucas, who
Mm.
has been my mentor she worked with us as a consultant for 10 years, and she had worked with Robert Mondavi for 18 years at the time and had 30 years in the wine industry
Mm.
when she came on. So she's also a Lodi winemaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I was making wine, but not huge fan of Zinfandel at the time, which is, sacrilegious to say here in Lodi, because Lodi is known for their beautiful Zins.
We won't tell anybody.
Hopefully no one's listening. No,
No.
It's not what we hope to.
No,
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Just kidding.
But I actually, don't have a romantic story about this, but I went to a local liquor store in Lodi. I had found a white Chateauneuf de Pape wine that I totally fell in love with. And this was a couple years after moving to Lodi. And I thought it was the best white wine I'd ever had. And, we had lived in Europe for a while. I was a white wine drinker since I was old enough to drink. I had tried many white wines, but I had never tried a white wine from Chateauneuf de Pape. So I went back to the store. I didn't say, well, I'm going to go ahead and rip out the Zin and plant white wines. I said, I'm going to get a couple cases of this amazing wine. So I brought the bottle back to the store, and the cashier got on the computer and said, oh, you're holding the last bottle in California.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what is this wine? And why haven't I had it before? So I started down this rabbit hole and realized that in Chateauneuf de Pape, only at the time about 5% of the grapes planted in that region were white grapes. And they kept a lot of that white wine in France. And what they didn't keep there, they exported to 50 different countries. And when you would find it in the US, most of the time that wine was pretty pricey. And I thought, well, that probably explains why I had never tried it before. But so I thought, well, we have 4-acre piece here that has no grapes on it. How about if I plant an acre to some Grenache Blanc? And at the time, also, I planted a half acre of Grenache Noir, thinking I would make a rosé, because I had experimented with Zinfandel rosés, which I enjoyed.
Okay.
And so
it wasn't an overnight event. It took a few years. Right.
Yes. So we moved to California in 2000, but moved to our house now, which is in the vineyard, in 2003. So the first Grenache Blanc that we planted was in 2008.
Okay.
And so we were actually thinking of just sharing it with friends and realized that an acre produces quite a bit of wine. And I don't know that I have that many friends. And we started planting just a few other on this 4-acre parcel. So we planted our Picpoul Blanc, Roussanne, Viognier, and some more Grenache Blanc on this 4-acre parcel.
Well, and I bet people thought you were crazy.
Definitely crazy. And, going to that story takes us to opening the tasting room in 2012 and just starting with a few hundred cases of wine and thinking, are we crazy? Are we doing the right thing? And then having some well-meaning male winemakers come to me and say, sweetheart,
nice,
you're never going to make it with all whites. You're going to have to add reds to your lineup. And at that point I said, well, if I don't sell them, I'll drink them. And I meant it. And
it's like, guys, thank you for the vote of confidence.
Right? Yeah. I think they were genuinely thinking they were advising me in a proper way. And, but I had no interest in making red wine at the time. I wanted to make whites and do it right. I always, as a white wine drinker, I don't know if you can remember back in the day, but before 2000, when you'd go to a winery, you were given a token white when you first went there, and all the other wines were red.
Right, absolutely.
And the token white was a low-priced wine, and the reds were all higher-priced wines.
Right.
Which I found interesting when spending time in Chateauneuf de Pape. I remember saying to winemakers, how come the white wine on your menu is the most expensive? because it was so different than I knew from
Yeah.
the US.
Uh-huh.
And he said, you should know, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to make a really good white wine.
Well,
Mhm.
And
I mean, you're so right. Red has dominated so much of the wine world
Mhm.
in California, certainly, but I think a lot in France as well. But the climate in the southern Rhone Valley, where Châteauneuf-du-Pape is located, is not that dissimilar to Lodi, and so I think you were on to something there too, right? You guys get hot in the summer. You get some warm summers, and yeah. So tell me about did the climate, did the terroir work out also for you?
yes, as a matter of fact, it's totally worked out. And, obviously we started investing some money in this project, so we were not going in blind. My husband had done a 15-year study on temperatures in southern Rhone versus the temperatures in Lodi, both in the daytime and the evening over the growing period.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the southern Rhone is a Mediterranean climate, much like northern Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and very similar to Lodi. In Lodi, we get, on average, a couple degrees hotter during the day in the summer. However, we're a couple of degrees cooler in the evening in the summer. So I don't know if anyone spent time in Lodi, but we could get a 95 to 100-degree day in the summer.
Oh, sure.
But at nighttime, it's in the 60s. So that's why grapes have grown so well here for so long, because we have the Delta breeze, we call it. So it's the breeze that comes through the Carquinez Strait between the mountains regions, and it
Okay.
cools everything off in Lodi in the evening, which is very interesting when I have friends from Chicago come visit, and they're wearing their little sandals and their sleeveless dresses, and we sit outside and I'll say, make sure to bring a sweater, and they're like, what,
Right.
it's 100 degrees, I'm not bringing a sweater. And then once the sun goes down and the breeze kicks up, they'll be asking me for a sweater.
Right.
um, but when we harvest the grapes, even we start harvesting in August. When we harvest the grapes, we've taken the temperatures, and the internal temperature of the grapes are 60 degrees. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about Lodi, is how cool it could get in the evening
Mm-hmm.
Right.
during the summer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that gives you the crisp acidity that is very obvious in your wines.
Yes. And, we have the great sandy soils, we've got the right temperature, the cool evening breezes, and that works really well for these varietals that are from the southern Rhone region of France,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
which,
Hmm.
I find lots of times I'll talk to Napa winemakers, and I find it interesting that they'll question why white wines in Lodi, but they never question why Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa.
Good point. I love, yep, yep. And it's only getting warmer there.
Right, because it's
Absolutely.
traditionally from a much northern region in
Uh-huh.
France, if you're
Hmm.
comparing.
Hmm.
And Napa has a climate very similar to Lodi's climate.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the other thing that is such a standout in your story, Sue, is the fact that you were, I think you said 50-ish when
Hmm.
you did a little pivot into becoming a winemaker. And again, you said it started as just for fun and for friends and family, but that to me is so many of us think, well, you know, that ship has sailed. I can't do the thing that I kind of, the dream I had is I had to let that go because now I've gotten too old to do something different. And I just love the fact that 50, you were still primed to make a life pivot and take on a new career.
Yes, and it's interesting too. We give vineyard tours here a couple times a year, and it's always, I see the light bulbs go on when I'm talking to a teacher or a nurse
Mhm.
or someone that's spent their whole life, you know, in school and then in work in a particular career where they feel that they cannot change after that career, and I just see the light bulb go on. Um,
Mm.
But yeah, as far as why I did this, if you had given me a list of everything I had to do to make this all happen, I probably would have said, I'm not going there. But at each little step along the way, I was able to kind of chunk away at not only the winemaking aspect, but the whole business aspect of opening a tasting room and, getting known within the wine community. But I had, like I said, the privilege of having a mentor who was, she's just a couple years younger than I am, but she showed me the way how to move in the industry as a female winemaker and then as a female winemaker of my age.
Well,
So,
having mentors in the wine industry for women is so important.
so important.
Yeah.
Yes. I think last time I had checked the data at UC Davis, over 50% of the graduating students in viticulture were female. However, they only represent about 18% of winemakers.
Yeah.
Isn't that
So,
crazy that it hasn't gotten over 20% in, I know it's
all
in
these
the
years.
20, almost 30 years I've been covering the wine industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. So, but so being a new winemaker, I mean, you came out of the gates and you started getting a lot of acclaim for your wines. You sold out the first year and you kept selling out every year since. Your wines have won numerous medals and competitions. In 2022, you were named Woman Winemaker of the Year by the International Women's Wine Competition. So obviously you had a hidden talent that you tapped into.
well, I think there were a couple things I had going for me. So in my 50s, I wasn't going to go back to school and take chemistry. um,
Yeah.
all over again. I realized that, and most of the chemistry that's done, which we do a lot of it in winemaking, is sent off to a lab, and it's done there professionally. You know, home winemakers try to do some chemistry on their own, but of course, it's really limited, and you don't have the right equipment. So all that stuff is done in a lab, and you have to know how to read the numbers. I was always a math major, and so I had that going for me. But the thing I think was key is I have a great nose. So my mother did, her family did, and so my grandmother's family were called the Thompsons. And so we have a thing where we have a Thompson nose. So we could smell lots of things, which is
Love it.
good and it's not good.
There are
Right?
times when.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I was, like I said, I was raised in Chicago, and I was in an Irish family. And my father was a huge fan of Julia Child. And even though he was a factory worker, he would come home, he would watch Julia Child, and he would recreate the recipes. And he
Oh,
was a
really?
huge foodie. Yep, yep. He was great. And everything had to be, you know, bought at the butcher or sourced from the farm or bakery bread only, and
Wow.
all that. I was just raised with that.
Nice.
I
And
love that.
yeah, so you start to realize all the special nuances in each of those things, whether it's freshly baked bread that's just picked up from the bakery still warm, or tomatoes on the vine, and all those. And I really wish that teaching children from a really young age all these different nuances and scents, what it does is it makes an impression in your brain about these different aromas and, also textures that
Mhm.
are in food. So, needless to say, huge foodie. Um,
Mhm.
and when my husband was in the corporate world, he would constantly have guests from other countries in town, and I would always prepare meals for them and prepare wine with it. So this was kind of a natural thing. And from our Irish heritage, I thought everybody had company every weekend. I didn't realize that that when I got married and moved, I didn't realize that there are people that just didn't entertain every weekend, and so I kind of duplicating this by having the tasting room open Thursday through Sunday every
Sure.
week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us about the tasting room program, the experience there, because I think you and Rodney are involved in developing the bites that are paired with 4 wines during the flight and the changes once a month.
Yes, so that's a lot of fun. So from the very beginning, we always wanted to feature the wine with a bite of food. Um, I remember going to years ago when we were in Texas. I went to a lovely restaurant that had a winemaker dinner, and that was eye-opening for me, to see how the wine can change the food and the food can change the wine. And it's still very much in my memory, this experience of um, eye-opening
Mm.
how food and wine went together. So from the very beginning, we just would pour at the tasting bar, but we would always have a little bite, a little piece of cheese with a little bit of violet confit on top of it, or a little mustard beans, something like that. And so Rodney did that even though he was in the corporate world, he was
Mm.
doing this little pairing. He actually has this huge spreadsheet now because we've done so many different pairings over this now 15-year
Mm.
period of time. But so after COVID changed everything,
Right.
we decided that we were going to do sit down pairings with 4 wines and 4 little food bites. So when somebody comes to visit us, we will have the 4 wines with the food bites, and it changes every month. Right now, we have a great chef that we meet with once a month, and he prepares about 6 or 7 different bites, and we go through the wines and the food and determine what wine and what food pairing is going to be for the following month.
Great. And
And
tell us, how much
mhm.
do you charge for this experience?
So pretty good deal. It's $20 a person.
Yeah.
What?
Oh my God. When I read that, I was like, what? Do you know what
Yeah.
that would cost in another famous wine region?
Yeah, closer to
Yes.
$100 or more.
Or
Yes.
more?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we get
Goodness.
lots of those people in the tasting room all the time. But also on top of that, our wine club members are comped a 4 free tastings 4 times a year. So we have wine club members bring friends in all the time to share what they like about our club. And so it's actually like a $320 value per year
Wow.
for our club members, in addition to 20% discount and incentives for our different events.
Gosh, that's fantastic.
Mm.
So,
That really is.
the business of running a winery never stops. What do you find kind of the most challenging, but also what's the most rewarding piece of it for you?
Mm. Gee, I think the most challenging, especially in today's market, is to know what the future is going to hold when you're running a business. And so we have a pretty small business. We're at 4,000 cases a year. We
Okay.
sell everything direct to consumer. So we have a great relationship with our club members and our guests. And they are the ones that keep us going. We are not in any grocery stores at all. Um, and it's just trying to meet their needs. I think we do a pretty good job, but I'm always trying to predict what else I should be doing next. So I'm kind of right now the person behind the scenes. I was the winemaker for many years, and I hired Christina Lopez as my assistant 5 years ago.
Mm.
Um, I was getting a little old to climb ladders and wash tanks all the time. So I needed an assistant, but she came on and was promoted to winemaker almost 3 years ago.
Okay.
So that has taken that off of my plate, but I still obviously taste the wines at least once a week in tank, and give advice where needed about um, keeping the wines in the style which we're known for.
Well, let's talk about some of the wines. You started with Grenache Blanc, but I think one of your more recent white wines is something most people have never heard of, called Bourbelanc.
Beaublanc.
Bourbelanc. I've been practicing trying to say that word. It's a tongue twister for me.
It is. Yeah, so we have 1 acre of Beaublanc, and we planted that in, let's see, I have a note here, in 2016. And it's pretty interesting because we're the first in the US to plant this varietal, even though it was brought over by Tablas Creek Winery. They weren't planting it when it became available in the nursery. So we beat them by 1 year. But it is I think, you tried it, but I think it's just an absolutely beautiful wine. And I can't believe it hasn't been made as a single varietal. Even in France, I have not yet found one single varietal.
Really?
It's usually part of a blend. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, usually. So, no, I found it to be very floral and with a lot of lime zest, but the juicy apricot and peach, and it almost had this beeswax quality to the floral notes, kind of white waxy flowers and honey also, but very rich in mouth coating, but there is still great acidity and minerality.
Yeah, and this wine actually, it goes really well. It's a dry white wine for sure, but it really likes something with a hint of sweetness. So we found that it's amazing with corn. Like we've paired it with like a Mexican street corn recipe, or corn coconut soup, or just some of our little honey or confit on a piece of cheese. It just really pops with that because it lends itself to having a little bit of sweetness. But it's also been great in our blends, and so it's really been a superstar for us.
Yeah. And another one you are making that we've mentioned is Picpoul.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Mary Babbitt, I don't know if you know this, but Picpoul is often referred to as a lip stinger in France.
Well, I like it.
Because of that, it's because of the high acidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Picpoul in French means to sting the lips.
Oh,
so,
okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they call it the lip stinger. And if you've spent time in France in little towns on a Friday evening, it's really typical to see a bottle of Picpoul Blanc on the table with a plate of oysters. So in France, it's basically meant to go with oysters, mussels, and shellfish. However, the Lodi version of Picpoul Blanc is not as screechingly acidic as some of the French varieties are. We've got a lot of, in addition to the acidity and minerality, there's kind of a honeydew, lemon, lime, citrus kind of characteristic to it. And we were the first in Northern California, as far as I know, that planted Picpoul Blanc, and it's really taken off. A lot of other Lodi wineries have planted Picpoul, and a lot of customers like it. Initially, nobody that walked in the tasting room had ever heard of that, along with a lot of other varieties that we have.
Right.
But it is a kind of a sit by the pool in the summer favorite of the customer in our tasting room. And you have to try it with guacamole. It's a must.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Wow.
Yes, the fattiness of the guacamole with a salty tortilla chip with this high acid mineral wine is just heaven.
That sounds fantastic.
wow.
And I love the lower alcohol wines like that.
Yes.
Those are really nice.
For sure. Absolutely.
My body likes them better too.
Yeah.
Winemakers get asked this and they say it's like picking a favorite child, but is
Um,
there one of your wines that's your most common go-to wine, if not a favorite, but you're going to reach for one of your wines? What's it going to be more often than not?
well, I think my Belle Blanc, which is we call it our beautiful white.
Hmm.
It's the first blend that I made, and it's my homage to the Chateauneuf de Pape wine I fell in love with years
Mm.
Yeah.
ago. It's 50% Roussanne, 30% Grenache Blanc, and 20% Bourbon. And it just won a double gold at the American Fine Wine Competition, our 2024 did.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
our longtime wine club members, that's a go-to wine for them, is the
Yeah.
Belle Blanc.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just has this lovely white floral bouquet, like, you know, the waxy white florals, honeysuckle, and
Mm-hmm.
gardenia and jasmine to me, and has
Mm,
such a nice, long, lingering finish.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Yeah, they're all beautiful. Really,
They
your wines are
yeah.
lovely. They're
hmm
priced really nicely. They're a
Yes.
high quality white wine and all under $50. I think your highest is what, 44 maybe, somewhere in
Yes, for the dry wines, we have sparkling that's 55, but yeah, all the dry wines, the highest price is $44.
there. Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to switch to grape growing.
Mm-hmm.
You and Rodney have been leading the way in regenerative farming. Are you doing regenerative organic farming or just regenerative?
It's regenerative. So we switched over from this vineyard was farmed conventionally because the Zinfandel grapes were being sold to Gallo back in the day. And then in 2014, we switched to the Lodi Rules program. So Lodi Rules is one of the first sustainable organizations that had set rules about sustainability. And so we joined that in 2014. And then 2 years ago, our winemaker, Christina Lopez, took on the added responsibility of the vineyard. It's something that she was dying to do.
Hmm.
And oh my gosh, she's been so good at it. So we switched over to regenerative farming practices, which is really about building resilience in the soil microbiome
Hmm.
with cover crop to improve the organic matter. We had 400 sheep in here last year for weed control and compost. And that was part of this regenerative program.
That's fun.
And yeah, and the thing is, we live here on the property. Our water is pumped from wells that are on the property. We have grandchildren run through the vineyards. And in addition to wanting to get the best product to our customer, we also um, live on the property. And we've actually seen such a switch with this cover crop planting. We have more birds than we've ever had. We
Oh.
had great horned owls nesting in our trees just right outside of our home.
Huh.
We just see so much more life. Uh, right now we have this incredible cottontail population. I don't know. I think there might be 100
Oh, wow.
cottontails living here. I don't know how good that's going to be long term. I know Australians didn't have
Mm.
much luck with cottontails. Um,
hmm
but yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. There's this great documentary called Kiss the Ground. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've seen it, but Woody Harrelson
No.
narrates it. And it talks about how important it is not just for grapes, but or for farms, but for the world to have cover crops instead of letting bare soil.
Hmm.
Um, and we've done tests of temperatures of the soil, both on the bare dirt in the summer versus the temperature of the ground under the cover crop, and it could be 40-degree swing.
Wow.
And when you think of climate change,
Hmm.
this is really key. And I mean, we're a small plot, we're 18 acres, but if every farm was doing this, it would make a huge impact with climate change.
That's a lot of cooling. Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Wow.
So this is a community thing in Lodi, that you're not alone in having sustainable practices, that this is something that the wine growers in Lodi are all behind, or mostly.
Yes. So I think last I heard, I think there were 50,000 acres under the Lodi Rules program. It might actually be more than that. And the Lodi Rules program, there's actually vineyards in Israel that have followed the Lodi Rules program, outside of the Lodi region. And it was one of the first organization to actually have their protected harvest actually checks the logs of the Lodi growers to make sure that they're doing everything they say. There's 150 different steps you have to do every year to meet this qualification to be in Lodi rules. So it's very serious. It's professors from UC Davis that helped set that up initially. And I believe other programs in other wine regions have copied or followed this Lodi rule.
Sure. Well, you look at the SIP sustainable practices in the Central Coast and Napa Green and other programs for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and the Lodi farmers have been farming in Lodi for years. I mean, we have grapes that are still living from the 1880s in Lodi. Cinsault grapes, they're the oldest Cinsault grapes in the world.
Right.
We don't personally have them, but they're in Lodi, and they are the oldest of the world because of the phylloxera epidemic in France wiped out the Cinsault vines.
Oh, interesting.
So then cuttings from these vines went to France to repopulate their Cinsault vines. So I mean,
that's cool.
1880s, yeah.
That's the Beckholt Vineyard, and
yes,
I believe it was 1880. Six or seven. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's a very, especially in wine circles, it's very well known, very well regarded. And
well, Mary Orland mentioned this in her introduction of you, Sue. She said that you were prescient in knowing and being a fan of white. She and I we both love white wines, but that there's this new resurgence in popularity of white wine. Could you talk to us about that?
Yes, so a lot of people now lately have been saying, "Wow, you've got a great marketing plan that you knew this was all happening." Well, I didn't know it was all happening. I did it all for love, the love of the wines. But I have a theory about why white wines are so popular now, and I think coming from at least from Chicago, I remember as a younger person and growing up in Chicago, we ate a lot of beef. We had a lot of beef on our plate, and Cabernet and the red wines went so well with that style of eating. And then since moving from there, I see that the whole U.S. seems to be shifted more to Mediterranean cuisine, Asian cuisine, even Mexican cuisine, but also like in California, the California farm to table movement. You're dealing with fresh products, trying to pair wine with vegetables like broccoli, arugula, asparagus, white wines, especially Viognier for you Viognier lovers, pair extremely well with vegetarian foods. So
I never would have thought to put Viognier and asparagus together, but I'm going to try it.
Yes, it's very, very nice pairing, and surprisingly so, I think, because what else are you going to pair it with? But it's actually these bitter vegetables actually bring out the peachiness in the Viognier, and it kind of helps downplay the bitterness of the vegetables. So it's really a lovely pairing.
Oh, that's great. So one other thing I wanted to talk to you about is you and Rodney starting the Lodi Appellation Inclusive Collective. Tell us what your inspiration was and what the mission is and what the results have been.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great project. So it's all about Rodney. So in after the George Floyd murder, um, I think not just wineries, obviously, but everyone was like, what can we do to um, help resolve this situation in some way? And Rodney decided what we could do as a winery is, since there are, I think it's like a negligible amount of Black winery owners and winemakers, um, can we bring people of color into the wine industry? So he started a group called the Lodi Appellation Inclusion Collective in 2020, and he had other local wineries that had the same vision come on board. And the goal is to increase diversity in our region and the industry at large. So initially, we hooked up with a group called the Roots Fund. And the Roots Fund is about having people, diverse people in the wine industry, um, and giving them scholarships. So we did several educational tours with the Roots Fund, bringing people in from actually all over the US. Um, and so we would have like a 5-day trip, and they would go to our winery for a couple hours. Then they would go to another winery of the Lace group for a couple hours. And so throughout the whole 4 or 5 days that they're here, and depending on what time of year it was, it might be they might help in picking grapes or riding a machine harvester, or blending wine in the winery, or pumping wine in a barrel, and just giving them a whole uh, visual of what it's all about. And so it was fun because we would have um, teachers, wine teachers from like the East Coast that had never even seen a grapevine,
Oh,
or
wow.
sommeliers who never were in a vineyard and really like touched the grapes. And so it was a lot of fun. But the local wineries said, we would love to have students that we could eventually hire and really increase diversity in the winery. And so we've kind of changed over the last couple of years, and we're working with a group called San Joaquin A Plus, which is doing internships with local students. And so we've had students from local high schools and even students from the colleges come in and do the same kind of educational tours. And it's been so rewarding and so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing we do tell them, it's not just the wine industry, but any industry. It's all about who you know, and connections. And if you don't have the opportunity for these connections, it's really hard to get in an industry, as I'm sure you all know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Well,
for you guys.
I'm wondering if you're getting any pushback on this diversity program given the current political environment.
We haven't personally. I mean, we don't take public funding, obviously. All of our funds come from the wineries, so we're not getting that in any way, and we're keeping it up. And so we just see a need here. And I don't know. I was just listening to Liz Tosh talk on one of your Sip Sip Hooray, and talking about how the African American community is really starting to show itself in the wineries and for visits. And
Right.
we really are trying to get the word out, that they're welcome. And I think that's the thing, is that if people don't feel welcome, they're not going to come visit. And so it works on many different levels.
Well, I think it's all good and good for you guys and good on Rodney for getting that started for you with Acquiesce. Sue Tipton, it has been such a pleasure to talk with you today. We're so grateful for the chance to hear your story. And cheers to white wines. Cheers to taking on a new career in your 50s. Cheers to clearly being someone who enjoys the goodness of life and the beauty of great wine, great food, and good people too. Great people. So thanks for all of that. It's been really fun.
Oh,
Right.
my pleasure. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be on your show.
Well, we're honored to have you, and you're such an inspiration to us and to so many people who will be listening. So thank you. And keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. It's working.
Cheers.
Cheers and sip, sip, hooray.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Well, Mary Babbitt, what a great conversation with Sue. I think she's such an inspiration, starting this new career in her 50s and getting such acclaim for it and positive response, and really standing up for white wine lovers like us.
Right. And talk about visionary, linking the climate of their own Southern Rhone Valley with Lodi and realizing that, gee, even though everyone else is making Zinfandel, I could do some beautiful whites here. And she sure has. And, it's having a dream and a vision and sticking with your plan. And kudos to her. And clearly she's got a great personal partner in Rodney who has supported and stood by all of these decisions and helped envision the food and wine pairing as well. So really cool.
And I think what they're doing with the Lodi Inclusion Program is really fantastic. And
so cool.
So they're leaders that way in the community with the regenerative farming. So, they're, if for our listeners, you need to get to know this winery, you can order their wines online. I'll put the links in our show notes, but don't miss this one.
Right. They keep the shipping costs down on wines as well. So that's something to know, and a great winery to support. So we were glad to share their story, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we hope you'll take the time to comment, like, rate, and share our podcast with other people.
That's right. It helps other people discover our podcast. Also, you can follow us on our socials at Sip Sip Hooray Podcast. And as I said, I'll put this in our show notes, both at our website at Sip Sip Hooray Podcast and on our Substack, which is also Sip Sip Hooray Podcast, which you can subscribe to for free, and you will get every notification when we drop a new episode, so you won't miss a thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We can't wait to do this again another time. And cheers to you, Mary Orland.
Sip Sip Hooray.
Sip Sip Hooray.